Hey, this is Justin Goff with Copy Accelerator. I'm here with Issak Hyde, who is an amazing success story in the sense that he pretty quickly went from absolutely nothing in copywriting income to now having consistent $5,000 months and sometimes bigger months when bigger projects come around. So I wanted to bring Issak on to kind of dig into his story, figure out what's working for him, and help anyone watching kind of create the same kind of income with copywriting. So, Issak, let's kind of start at the beginning. Most people don't just get into copywriting because it's something they've always wanted to do. Most people usually backdoor fall into it or something happens and they get into copywriting. I'm curious what you were doing before you kind of heard of copywriting and how you how you got into it.
So I was just doing like retail temp, like factory jobs and stuff. Honestly, I had the closest I'd been to like even like a middle income kind of thing was selling insurance at Geico, and that didn't pan out. So yeah, I was the last job that I had before I started making money with copywriting was actually putting drywall tape in a box and sliding it along the conveyor belt so that it would get wrapped in plastic. And then I had to put the plastic on a pallet. So very high intelligence involving skill.
I'm curious, was that something where you just kind of like dreaded going to work and you didn't enjoy it, so you're looking for a way out?
Yeah, I mean, I don't drive at present, mostly because I never had the money to buy a car. And so I was walking like 2 hours to my crap job and then walking 2 hours back. And like that was most of my jobs. So not only did I hate working there while I was working that, but I hated the 2 hours that led up to it that I would have to walk to get there. So yes, that's a
Wow.
very accurate description.
Wow. Okay, so I'm curious now from going from that to copywriting, how did you actually find out? Were you just like Googling it, found it on YouTube? How did you actually get uh, introduced to it?
Yeah, I actually got targeted by one of Dan Locke's quiz funnels actually.
Nice.
And I'd seen the high ticket closer thing. I was like, well, I hate having to close people on the phone, so not doing that. And then the copywriter version of that came out. It's like, well, I've always been writing and I like not having to deal with people as much. So this sounds great. And I don't even need to go to school for 8 years, which was the big thing for me because I knew that I could become a lawyer, doctor, whatever, and make bigger money. But I mean, the student loan thing, but then also just how many years it would take. Like, I'm not going to live to be 135 probably, So I only got a limited amount of time to make all this. So that was kind of how I got into it.
Okay, so you did Dan's, what is it? It was like an 8-week course. Is that what it was?
Yeah, I forget exactly how long it was now, but it was HIC was the name of it.
Okay. So you did that. I'm curious. This was, I think, what, end of like 2019-ish?
Yeah, December. I don't remember like if it was the beginning or the end of the month, but that's when I found out about it. And then I think it started in January or something like that.
Okay. Do you remember the first client you got?
Yeah, that was actually a YouTube influencer, Fight Tips. Shane Faison is the face of the brand, and he just teaches like MMA and stuff like that. And I'd been following him for years, and I was doing the whole cold outreach thing. And funny, actually, that was the first time that I tried my cold outreach and got it on that. And then all the other times I did it didn't work out so well, but the first time it worked out great. And yeah, that was a 2K retainer thing to write like almost daily emails with them. He actually had more of an issue sending emails more frequently rather than how much it costs. So like he would have been fine sending 2 emails a week at 2K, but sending 5 emails a week, which would be more money for, it's interesting how people do things. So yeah, nice guy though.
So your first, let's talk about your first gig with him. So you're basically writing 2 emails a week. Is that right?
Yeah, so it started at I think two, and we raised it because like I wanted to help him out as much as I can, not just use him like a wallet. And he had the two segments. One was like for like site members, and one was for non-site members. And so I ended up doubling it with time, but I think it was we only ever got to like 4 for each list.
Okay. So I'm curious from there, how how many other clients did you kind of have? Did you have other clients at the time, or did the other clients kind of come after that?
So the thing was, is that was, as far as I remember now, that was the only retainer client that I had until I joined CA later on. And I would have projects here and there. I worked with Jason Hansen and such, and I helped with different things, like in Troy Erickson's group, and got some stuff and whatnot. But it was always very feast and famine leading up to all that.
Okay, so let's dive into when things kind of started to get a little more consistent for you. So you started in late 2019, you got your first client mid 2020. When did things start to get a little more consistent where you were making, I don't know, at least $1,000 or $2,000 each month kind of regularly?
Well, the funny thing about that is, like, and you've seen this countless times with other people, is that there are different kinds of stories, but like everybody has their own path when it comes to copywriting income. So some people, they were making 300 a month, or they were making, 5,000 this month and then 2,000 the next month. And I was making basically jack shit for the entire time. And when I joined CA, the thing was, is that for a while I had thought that I just wasn't good enough, because it stood to reason to me, if I'm trying to do this outreach or whatever and nobody's responding and doing the custom samples, everything, well, I must just not be writing good enough copy. But then I was talking to copywriters who were making way more than I was, and they said, no, that's not the problem. It's not that your copy can't get a lot better. It's just that you can be making lots of people money right now. And so I realized that I hate the cold outreach thing, particularly the DM closing thing. It just feels so not shady to me, but just so disingenuous to me. And so I wanted another way to get higher contacts, but in a fair way. And so that was when I realized I needed to have just a better community, because just having a bunch of copywriters say, oh yeah, you'll make it someday, buddy. It's like, that's nice, but it's not helpful. You know what I mean? So that's why I wanted to go to CA Live, because as everybody in Copy Accelerator knows, I have no problem talking to people. So yeah, I just went and had fun, and was fortunate enough to make a good impression with enough people. Jared Harlan in particular has helped me out a bunch. Lauren Pinellos also. And yeah, that's when things started going up. So the first month that I was in CA, I didn't make more, mostly because I was like diving into the trainings. Then the next month I made 4K, which was my highest amount until then. Then November, I made almost nothing because I was doing all the work and nobody paid me yet. And then December, I made 11,000. So that was kind of like the first. Yeah. So it's just weird, because like, as you well know, 10K is like that number that everybody, talks about. And then when it happened to me, like I didn't like have this plan. Like I didn't like Brian Sparinello, where like I knew exactly what was going to come, and like I had everything like set up. Like he's an android. I don't care what people say. Like he has everything's so dialed in that like anyway. So I just kind of stumbled into it. Like, oh, okay, I guess I'm making that much this month.
It's funny. So one thing I really would like to dive into after you kind of explain that is it's pretty amazing to me that you went kind of that long and kept chugging along without kind of really making any serious headway. I mean, the getting the first client after 6 months and getting paid there, I'm sure was probably a big deal for you. Like, oh, okay, this is like real now. I can actually do this. I'm curious kind of what your thoughts around like the mindset and what we were feeling when some of those like rough months were going on.
Yeah, I mean, I think the main reason why I am not in a padded room somewhere at all, honestly, is because like I've never tried to be easy on myself. And that was just like, I think a lot of people try to direct all the negative aspects like out at other people. And for me, I was always thinking, okay, well, that person sucks, but like, what can I do to improve this situation? And that was true in retail. It was true in other situations. And it just goes back to, like I said, like there are a lot of people that complain that they don't have a job at all. And yet I was walking 2 hours to get to a job that most people would hate to have. So it's just one of those things where, and it's a thing I need to honestly dial back sometimes in the community too, is that sometimes people just sound like whiners to me. And I just think like there are people like and somewhere else in the world who like their idea of getting water involves like walking 2 miles just to sustain themselves. All I need to do is walk down a sidewalk to get to this, you know? And so I think just being real with myself, you know, going David Goggins mode with it and just understanding that this thing that seems so horrible is just not that bad. And I also don't like losing. And the more things get bad, you know, the more I'm motivated, you know, to just rage my way through it and then just make it happen anyway in spite of it. So, yeah.
I think I love that you shared that. It's great. Yeah, I feel like you have a pretty good outlook on things. One thing I'd like to dive into is kind of those first like year or two as a copywriter. There's usually a lot of like eye-opening things where because you're like you don't know what you don't know, and you're kind of getting fire hosed with it feels like so much. I'm curious if there's been a few things that have kind of like really moved the needle for you in terms of your copy.
Yeah, critique definitely has been the biggest thing in terms of moving the critique, in terms of moving the copy, because you're only ever going to get so good if you're just trying to figure it out yourself, right? So getting people who know what they're talking about to critique it, because just getting critique of any kind is not the same. And so I had gotten that somewhat early on, and it's only gotten better since then. So that was a big aspect when it came to the copy. I mean, being able to bring everything that I write to group calls and like one-on-ones and stuff like that. It's like it's my copy, but there's always that element of quality control there, so long as the client gives me enough time to use it. So yeah, that's what's helped me out the most with the copy. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of the things that every new copywriter I say basically write every day and get feedback as much as possible. It's the fastest path to get good at writing copy. And yeah, I mean, I feel like I haven't seen a ton of your copy, but the ones I have seen, definitely you've gotten so much better since just even like 6 months ago. It's noticeable. All right, so that's one thing. Let's see. Is there anything else that you feel like was kind of a needle mover, whether it was maybe getting access to better clients, kind of support from other copywriters, learning from other copywriters? I'm curious if there's anything else that moved the needle.
I think the attitude of understanding that doing something is not necessarily going to produce the result you want immediately was a big thing that I've had in like other aspects of life, but I found really paid off in copywriting, because if you're not afraid to fail, you'll just write the damn email and you'll ask the person who knows way better than you, what do you think? You're not going to think you're pestering them. You're just going to understand that as long as you build that relationship up, it's like just shut up and show them the email. And it's that whole mindset thing where people get in their own way. So that's a big aspect of that I think people are like just shooting themselves in the foot, because even like on a call earlier, someone was saying, I don't want to pester, I think it was Stefan or whatever. It's like, you really think you're pestering Stefan? Like Stefan is all over the place. Like he doesn't care. You just talk to him, you know? So that was that thing. But also understanding that you're gonna make mistakes and mess it up. And I think that people are still afraid. They're still in that employee mindset where they like their job is just to do the same thing over and over again and make as few mistakes as possible. Whereas when you're the business owner, you're trying to learn as much as you can. And if you only do things when you know it's going to go right, then you're not going to do anything. So I think that's the thing that's helped me out a lot. Definitely more recently, I've had to understand that I need to kind of dial back on being too authentic when it comes to certain things, because then people don't really take me seriously. And also that you're never done. There's always going to be something that you thought that was just gone that you're going to run into. So for example, the list management client that I have right now, it's a great opportunity. There's lots of benefits I've had from working with them and such. There's a mistake that I made that I don't feel like it was entirely my fault, but then I need to think that I'm not just arguing with the assistant manager at Dollar General anymore. So it's like I need to approach things from a more mature aspect as well. So just the understanding that you're always growing, no matter how much money you're making, or if people recognize your name or whatever.
So one question I have for you, I'm really curious. How's your kind of like day-to-day slash, I guess, freedom and flexibility really changed compared to kind of where you're at when you were working the 9 to 5 retail before?
I mean, it's worlds apart. I can, first of all, being able to work at home and get the maximum productivity out of everything. I mean, like I never knew what that felt like. To me, work always involved, honestly, like my work day, my walk day is longer than Jared Harlan's work day, like, from when I used to walk to my job. So that wasn't even including how long I was spending there. And just the being able to have fun with everything too, because I always did my best to have fun with things. But I mean, when you're scratching your hand open trying to open a friggin' box of tampons, it's a little bit harder to do that than it is when you get to talk to copywriter pals and like joke around with the group coach and stuff like that. So it's just worlds apart, honestly.
Nice. I love that. I mean, that to me is one of the things that I think most people who are in a 9 to 5, that's probably more of a driver than the money actually. It's like
Yeah.
I want to kind of get out of this and have kind of my freedom back to control my schedule, work when I want to work where I want to work.
But the chains still follow them. I've found in a few situations too, because people are still, they want that freedom, but they're not necessarily ready to not be told what to do all the time. It's something that I've noticed. So it's like they want to be able to make their own decisions, but then when there isn't a manager looking behind them, it's like, well, what did you do today? Well, I played with my dog and my daughter too. I played with her. It's like, okay,
Yeah, it's a big change, and if you're not, yeah, if you're always used to having someone telling you exactly what to do, and now it's on you to do it, and nobody forcing you. Did you struggle with that at all when you started freelancing?
Well, I honestly didn't have I didn't have the choice to, because I never made enough money to have a financial cushion to mess around. So it's like I've always tried to do more than everybody ever expected. And usually I was the person or someone saying, well, why are you doing that? Because they didn't get why I was doing it. And so I think Warren Buffett had mentioned in once in like an interview that there's like people with an external scorecard and an internal one. And I'm definitely the internal scorecard guy, because I'm never satisfied. I always want to be doing more and more and more and more and more and more. So as you can probably see from the intensity, I'm just trying to explain it.
I understand it. Let's dig into kind of some of the stuff you're doing right now with clients. So what's your kind of setup look like? What are you writing? Are you doing, I know you do a lot of emails and list management stuff. Is that the bulk of it?
Yeah, that's my main work right now, because I do want to be more of like the strategic end of things. I like leverage, just like getting into copywriting. So I didn't need to spend 6 hours or 6 years working on this profession. I could work really hard and make the money sooner. It's the same thing for me when it comes to managing a list or like media buying or something like that. But yeah, email is also the thing that I like doing the most. But I also don't really like niching down too much, because I want to release my own stuff too. So the way that I look at it is, that'll help me once I get there, but also everything that you do happens on like the continuum for the customer. So if I know how to write even a decent Facebook ad, that informs my emails better, just as being able to write even a not great lead. At least I know what the lead's supposed to be doing, so that when I send the email, I know if, okay, is this a click driver, or is like the sales letter or whatever not really that good? So I need to do most of the work.
Yep. Smart. So I'm curious so that's kind of what you have going on now. What is kind of the plans you have for, let's say, next 6 to 12 months? Is there keep doing kind of the same stuff you're doing, maybe get better clients, maybe do your own stuff? I'm kind of curious where your head is at with that.
Yeah. So my financial goal for the year is 240K. Uh, I know I can make that happen. Just a matter of, doing the right amount of work in the right directions. I want to get about 16 of that from list management and retainers, obviously. And then the remaining portion of that and plus would be projects. Because I do want to understand, like I said, how to do different aspects of things. And then while I'm doing that, but some of the surplus income I make, I'm just going to put into doing my own stuff, because I think Jared Richards from the Facebook compliance calls has basically said you're never going to learn this stuff as well as if you have to spend your own money to do it. So I might as well just get in there and start making mistakes, So, but with my stuff, not with client stuff. I want to make as few mistakes as possible with client stuff and just talk to them as I'm learning. But yeah,
Nice. Love it. Cool. So one last question I'm going to ask you, which I ask everybody who comes on.
sure.
If anybody was watching this who is interested in Copy Accelerator or thinking about joining the program, what would you say to them based on your experience?
I'd say that if you think that it can't work, it's just an excuse. Honestly, and the thing is, I do come from like a really intensive background in my own brain. So I understand like my reality is my reality. But I mean, I literally went from walking 2 hours every single day through, whether it's the freaking snow or whether it's a burning ass summer, to make minimum wage, listening to someone who doesn't know what they're talking about, act like I don't know what I'm talking about, to making the same walk back home just to be able to look forward to it tomorrow, to being able to just stand in my living room because I want to do a standing desk and just talk to people and write the emails and just make things happen for people and make a comfortable living while still moving towards what I, have always wanted to do in terms of selling my books and stuff. So you can make it happen. It's just a matter of understanding that if you want X results in Y time frame, you need to put in Z level of effort rather than just, thinking it's like, oh, why didn't I make 11K like my first 4 months? Because if you could, then everybody would be doing it and continue doing it.
Love it. Awesome, man. Well, big congrats on your success. I'm glad you came on and shared your story. I think it'll be inspiring to a lot of people, seeing how you kind of got out of what was a bad situation and gutted through those first kind of couple months that were tough, to seeing where you're at now and to seeing kind of what your goals are for the rest of the year is pretty inspiring. So I think it's going to help a lot of people. So appreciate you coming on and sharing your story.
Yeah, man. It's I've noticed that a lot of people have come from more like office backgrounds and stuff like that, and they're making an okay income, but they're not satisfied with what they're doing. And I haven't really seen many people who just go from the retail aspect, honestly, because we don't usually have the budget to be able to pay for the programs that require it. But, it just goes to show that it's just a matter of the attitude. And it's like, I'm far from the best copywriter in just 2 years in. So it's like, you just need to be good enough to get the ball rolling. And then you just snowball it,
Love it, man. That's a perfect place to end. Appreciate you coming on and sharing everything. I think it's going to really help a lot of people.
Sure thing, man. Appreciate you having me on.